Alright, hello everyone, my name is Shep, welcome back to the Butcher's Circus, and today we're gonna be watching 4 matches that I did against the one and only Tiger Fingerman, so one of the strongest players from the Chinese community, and he's gonna be playing only the Immortal Team for today, so it's going to be 4 matches of us trying to break through the Immortal Team. So this is going to be kind of a masterclass on how you want to play against this team when you don't have a team that fully counters it, which, you know, if you have a team that counters the Immortal Team, which we'll get into that later, it's pretty easy to win against it, but if you have a team that's just, you know, dealt to deal with pretty much about any team in the Butcher Circus, then you might really find yourself struggling if you go against this matchup. So today we are playing with the Jester WD first, so this is a very capable team. It's kind of like WD except instead of having a bounty hunter, you have a Jester in position 3, which is going to give you plus accuracy, it's going to give you that finale pressure, and it's going to give you the hit through guard pressure with that Turk step. So it is quite good. Of course, you're missing out on the marks, and on the disruption with the come hither is quite rough, but such is the way of the Butcher Circus. So I don't believe that I got to go first. No, I didn't, so that's quite a sad thing. You always want to go first. Well, not always, but you almost always want to go first with the stun teams. So there's that. And yeah, our game strategy to try and take out my opponent here is essentially to get one kill, because if we get one kill, this team that my opponent has is very dynamic, and what that actually means is it's dynamic in the sense that it needs the 4 characters to stay alive. If one of the characters dies, the team stops being dynamic and it just stops working completely, especially against damage teams. It's just gonna suffer so much and it's gonna stop working immediately. The team is just gonna lose like 90% of the time if you lose just one of your characters, so you really have to prevent that from happening. And what's gonna happen here is what might look like kind of a difficult place for my opponent to be in is not quite a difficult place, because it has a lot of defensive abilities. Before we go into that, I want to explain the trinkets that we actually have on the Jester WD here. So of course we have 2 stun trinkets on the Crusader, so you actually have a good stun chance. Now let's be honest, against the Men-at-Arms with 120% stun resistance, you're not going to get the stun, so even with 2 stun trinkets, that's not going to really help us all that much. The Abomination has the Red Tiara's Net and the Brass Knuckles, which I still feel, or the Brass Knuckles, or as you'd call them, the Tiger Finger. That's why Tiger Finger Man has his name. It's because in the tournament he wanted to ban the trinket and he banned the Tiger Finger, which somehow translates to Brass Knuckles, so it's quite an interesting trinket that he banned. But yeah, Tiger Finger was banned, and I believe that this is the best setup for the Abomination. It just works very well. You still have a very good move chance with the net, 120%. It's quite nice. You can push a lot of characters if they do not have the snuff, and even with the snuff you still have a decent chance of pushing them. And you also have quite a reliable stun in the form of the Brass Knuckles and the huge amount of accuracy that you have because of the net. So if you don't want to run double stun, and if you don't want to run double push, if you want to have an Abomination that's kind of capable of doing both, this is definitely the setup that you should have, not just the good old average trinkets, or, you know, his unique trinkets, because if you bring his unique trinkets, you really have to dedicate yourself to doing one or the other, because while with this setup you have plus 6 accuracy, which is universal, and you have plus 10% damage, which is universal, with the other trinkets you're either stunning or you're pushing. The trinkets don't work well with each other. With every action you do, you're only gonna have a benefit from one of them, so it's really quite a rough thing to do. And you might try to compare this with, for example, what I say about Stress Crusaders doing stuns, but it's really quite different, because you still have a very good stun. You still have a very reliable stun in the form of 140% chance, and if you go for a stun, it's not like you're not going for your win condition, which is stress. It's quite a different thing. If you go for a stun with a Stress Crusader, you're not doing stress, so that's bad. If you go for a stun or for a push with the Abomination, you're still doing damage, so overall it's quite a good thing. So then the Crusader double stun, I've already gone over that, and the Jester has Monkey Sprawl and the finisher. You know, just very average setup, nothing too special to go over, and it's just going to give us dodge, going to give us accuracy, and going to give us the kill chance that we desperately need. Speaking of kill chance, doesn't look like we have too much of a good kill chance against the Flagellant at this point, but it's not the end of the world, because the Arbalest has that Piercing Quarrel, and with the Piercing Quarrel she can hit pretty hard, she can break through 20% of that protection, so that's quite a good thing, and she has the Medic's Full Plate, just so she can be tankier than usual, because this team can kind of rely on that tankiness with the Arbalest having your protection and your and your healing skills. So here my opponent goes for a bit of a premature surrender. I didn't really get to comment on the match too much, but they went for a premature surrender because they felt like after missing that slam, I could have just gone for finale and I probably would have gotten the kill. Then again, my finale numbers weren't really that amazing. I felt like it was a premature surrender. They could have still healed with Musketeer, they could have healed with Flagellant, but I felt like that was a bit of a fluke, so I'm gonna go for the second match with the exact same team just to see if we can still pull off something good here. So I am gonna start off with the Battle Ballad as well, even though the maximum amount of dodge that my opponent has is 5 with the Musketeer after the round 1 dodge goes away. It's quite an interesting thing, isn't it? I'm still gonna go Battle Ballad even though my opponent only has 5 dodge. Now the thing is, if they go Bolster and they're at Testor with their Flagellant, they can actually go up to 30 dodge, and their character is going to have a good amount of dodge overall, so I definitely want to give myself accuracy if I have the chance to do so. It's also going to give me crit chance for my finale, so it's overall a very good thing. So I went for a stun there on the Abomination. You might be wondering, well, Shep, why didn't you just slam immediately, just go for the kill on the Flagellant immediately, just get the pressure going? Now the thing is, the pressure that the Immortal Team does is essentially focused on just one ability, Beast Spile. It Beast Spiles, and slowly withers your team down to 0 HP and up to very big amounts of stress, because Beast Spiles are very difficult ability to deal with. It's a very good one. I don't know why some people dislike it. It does stress, it does blight on 2 characters, and it also gives yourself a riposte. It's relatively accurate, and you have a lot of abilities to make it more accurate here, so it's a really good ability, very difficult one to deal with, because I don't have a blight heal, I don't have a stress heal, so if they just keep dropping it over and over and over again, and they can keep their characters alive, they're essentially gonna win. So you might be wondering, well Shep, why did you go Borgovite first and not go for the stun onto the Flagellant? Like, you could have made sure that the men-at-arms wouldn't have gotten the reclaim immediately. Well, the thing is, I couldn't follow up my ability with just another crit sniper shot, because it wouldn't have dropped the man-at-arms down to 0, and if I hadn't gone for the stun there, the reclaim would have just come down right after the sniper shot, so it wouldn't have mattered. The man-at-arms would still be alive and well. It's very difficult to kill a man-at-arms against the Immortal Team, because he can guard, he can give himself a lot of protection, and he has the heals from the Musketeer and the heals from the Flagellant. The heals from the Musketeer give yourself plus healing received onto the character they actually heal, so it's very difficult to break through it. So now I'm gonna drop a Dark Sound. You might be wondering, oh no, Shep, you just used your finisher character. That's not how you play with your Circus. You bring the characters down to 0 HP without the finishing character, and then you kill them with the finishing character. Here's the thing, they have a heal. If I go for the sniper shot, they're gonna heal, and then they're gonna be perfectly okay. They're gonna disrupt my Jester here, they're gonna push him all the way to the back so I don't have finale pressure, and I have an 8% chance of getting a death blow. Keep in mind that Last Breath color onto this Flagellant gives you plus 12% death blow resistance, so they're gonna make good use of it and make sure that I don't get a good kill shot. If I had gotten the kill there, it would have been GG, but I didn't get the kill. They have to be a little bit greedy just to stay alive for longer, and that's what's gonna happen right now. The thing is, the longer the match goes on, as long as Beast Spiles aren't being dropped, it's overall good for me, because I can get more finale buffs, and I'm closer to getting a kill on my opponent because they just start exhausting their heals. That's hopefully what happens here. But at the same time, another very important thing that you might forget if you're not too familiar with this matchup is that the Abomination is eventually gonna run out of transformations and is eventually gonna run out of guard breaks. The only reason I'm able to have this much pressure against the Flagellant is because the Man-at-Arms can't guard him. At this point, it's the only character that the Man-at-Arms can't protect. The thing is, normally you'd have a stun character to make sure that you can focus anyone down, but since I don't have a stun character, or I do have a stun character, but since the stuns are so unreliable, I'm not going to be able to focus the character down, and that's quite rough. I'm not going to be able to focus them down unless they have a guard break debuff on them, and then I can focus them down. So at this point, you might be looking at this situation like, okay, just attack, but the thing is, if I attack right now, if I go for like a rage or something, they're just going to heal with the Musketeer, they're going to have more healing received, they're going to be at more amounts of HP than they were before, and I'm just going to take more stress, and it's not going to go anywhere for me. Things are just going to get worse. So what I end up deciding on is I'm going to go for a heal here, onto the Jester, and what I feel like is eventually going to be a little bit of a misplay, because it would have been better to go for the flare there. I'll explain just now, but yeah, I end up going for the heal just so I don't get hit by a crit slam and get pushed to the back and at 0 HP, which would have been terrible. I just end up going for that because I didn't feel like the sniper shot would have really made too much of a difference. So my opponent here is thinking on what they want to do, and they end up dropping kind of an early redeem, which is a bit of a weird play, but then again it puts their flashlight at the maximum amount of HP, so it's not too bad of a play either. And at this point I can go for a rage and just try to do some damage, try to chip away at that flashlight now that they've used the redeem, because I feel like using the redeem there was maybe a little bit weird, but at the same time I still had the finale pressure, so they definitely had to heal. What they were scared of was me going for, was them going for a heal and then being healed up to like the amount of HP where they would go to like 15 HP with the bleed. They were really scared of that, and after I went for manacles I could just drop a finale by the start of the next round and to the pin over, so that's why they dropped the redeem. They really had to think that one through, of course. So here I'm gonna go for a stun. I do a decent amount of damage, honestly. I do 8 damage, but I do not get the stun, which is quite sad, but such is the way of the Butcher Circus. I do still have one more transformation. This one is definitely going to be a little bit more of a difficult match to win, but I do still have one more transformation. Yeah, this is definitely playing against the toughest not to crack. It's the Immortal Team. This is really the most difficult it gets when you want to have like a defensive team that can just deal with just about anything. It is the physical, literal embodiment of the phrase "a tough nut to crack." So I should mention that this is actually the second time I'm filming this this video, because this is post-match commentary, of course, but I have already done post-match commentary onto the total of 4 matches, but at the end I realized that I wasn't recording my screen, I was recording the Butcher Circus, but I'm not on the Butcher Circus, so all I had was actually a black screen. So that's fun. This is actually the 3rd time I'm looking at these matches, so I must have analyzed them very well so far, and indeed I have analyzed them quite well. So here my opponent's going to go for Manacles, and why Manacles on the Jester? Why not Manacles on the Crusader? Because if you don't stun the Crusader right now, your Abomination is going to get stunned. Well, the reason behind it is because you don't want to give me flare value. You're in position 1, so you definitely don't want to pass, and if you don't want to pass, what you have to do is go for Manacles, because you can't be spell from position 1, obviously. And if you don't go for Manacles on the Chancellor, which is the only character that had an action left, I would just get way too much value from the flare, and things would be quite bad for you. So at this point, the flashlight is guarded, so I have lost some pressure I had on that flashlight, but I'm just gonna go for a stun here. Just keep it simple, remove the Abomination action, make sure he doesn't drop these spells. Keep in mind that every Manacles they drop is a beast spell that they're not dropping, so overall I'm quite happy with that. I have taken some pressure already in terms of stress and in terms of horror, but I'm still not feeling too poor here. You're gonna drop your claim just to make sure that I can't focus that Abomination down, because between Sniper Shot, if I get a big crit right now, it could be a little bit rough for them to stay alive, but they just drop their claim and they're perfectly fine here. I flare, which actually means that I have a big slam coming up. And the thing is, if I get a slam crit right now, which is what I was thinking, if I get a slam crit right now, I drop the flash to like 3 HP, maybe they don't heal for enough, maybe I can get a finale to hurt for them quite a lot, but they go up to, they are still at 11 HP, so they're not in a rough spot at all, and they can just heal with the Musketeer and probably stay completely fine here. They're gonna go for that heal, and they heal for 13, which is, you know, it's a big enough amount to make sure that Finale doesn't do enough damage. I go for a Dark Stab, and I'm gonna go up to 3 Finale buffs, which definitely isn't a lot. 3 Finale buffs is 13 to 22 damage against 10% protection. It's normally 14 to 25. I know the Finale numbers by heart, so at this point, someone who's less experienced would have just clicked the Jester, went for the Finale, and if they won, you know, it's pretty much a 60% chance of winning the match if they win, and if they fail, they lose the match on the spot, so there's that. You have a 60% chance of winning, 40% chance of losing, and even though that's favorable, that's not what I want. I want to win. I don't want a good chance of having a win, or, you know, a decent chance of having a win. I want the win. So I'm not going to drop the Finale unless I know that I have a very good chance of just getting the death blow there. I say 60%, even though 17 is kind of like smack in the middle of 13 to 22. I need to roll for 18, by the way. I say that because with the 25% crit chance, it's a bit more likely that I get the crit, and then it's definitely a kill, but you know, you can't always count on the crit coming through, unless you're J-Man. If you're J-Man, you can definitely count on the crit finale, right? So here we drop a Holy Lance, hoping that I would do enough damage after it, and you can see I still have 3 finale buffs. How much HP does the Flagellant have? He's still at 17. I dropped the Holy Lance, but I think I dropped it on the Musketeer, perhaps? I'm not entirely sure what I did there. If I dropped it on the Musketeer, it's because I don't really want the Flagellant to just go for the immediate redeem. After that happens, I don't really see myself getting a kill too early here, and keep in mind that I've already transformed twice, so if I don't get the kill soon, I'm never gonna get the kill, and if I never get the kill, I'm gonna lose, slowly but surely. Even though I can do a lot of pressure, I'm not gonna win. So here I just hit the Flagellant to get quote-unquote lucky to get a crit. It doesn't really matter too much, because he's still gonna heal his entire health bar. He has plus healing received, and he has Last Breath Color, and the Gauntlet of Absolution. He's gonna go for a redeem, and he's gonna heal 36 HP here. So, you know, it doesn't really matter if we drop him to 0 or not. It's honestly quite good for him, because then he healed the other characters by dropping to this star. But I get to just go for a Dark Side, and I actually do 10 damage, which is quite good, and now I'm up to 4 buffs, which normally is, I believe, 16 to 29 damage. So it is definitely piling up a little bit here. So they go for a stun, and now I have flare value if I want to. But before I go for the flare, you go for the stun the abomination. Make sure that they can't stun you again, because if you flare right now, what's gonna happen is, if I flared before the stun went down, they will just stun me again with a 100% chance of success, and then I would not have finale, and then after their turn went down with the Flagellant, the guard break debuff will go away, and then they could guard with the Man-at-Arms, and then it's completely over. I'm never ever gonna get a kill against the Reclaim, heals, suffers, all the BS that they have. So here they just drop a Bell, because that's the best thing they can do. What they want to do is reduce my damage as much as possible, and I'm gonna go for Manacles here. I do 4 points of damage, which is good, but you know, it's not quite enough. The Musketeer can just heal here. She's gonna go for a fast shot, heals for 17, a bit of an overheal, but you know, the Flagellant is day, so there's really nothing else you could have done. And I roll for 7, and that's 7, and the Flagellant is gonna go down to 24 HP. Now the thing is, I could have gotten a crit there, which would have pretty much confirmed me a win, or I could have just gone for the Abomination instead, because he actually doesn't have protection. And the thing is, if I don't drop a finale right now, the character is going to get guarded, and then it's over. It's essentially over. My character is getting close to being afflicted, and if I don't get a kill now on the finale, I won't be able to get a kill, so I have to go for it. It's round 8, all my abilities have gone through, and 16 to 30. It was still difficult. It was still a difficult finale kill, but I do take that. I do take that kill, and I most likely take the W here. My opponent is not going to surrender, because they feel like they've dealt enough stress to me overall, and they feel like the position is good enough that they might still be able to get a win. But it is a very difficult win to try and get here. They're going to go for the Simon my Abomination, which is lucky enough to actually push me to the back. But it is still a very, very difficult match to win for them, because without that Flagellant, it just becomes a lot more difficult to sustain. I get to go for a stun here, and my team, it might have lost some of its pressure by the Jester not having the finale anymore, but I can still drop Harvest, which is something a Bounty Hunter wish he could have. I mean, he has Caltrops, which is also good, but I do have Harvest to drop later down the match, and my characters, they're not really afflicted. Crusader might go Virtuous. 2 of my characters are at like 40 stress. It's only the Abomination that's afflicted, but only the Abomination afflicted is not the end of the world. He can still do his Beast Files, and he can still do his stuns if he really wants to. Of course, he can't transform anymore because he already used it twice, but it's perfectly okay. Beast File is still quite good, because it's gonna blight that Man-at-Arms out, so you do have that going for you. But of course, if you drop Beast Files, the Musketeer can cure them, so it's not the end all be all dropping the Beast Files here. It's surprising that Jester WD actually has so much DOT between Harvest and the Beast Files. It can definitely come in clutch if you're playing against regen. But yeah, here the Musketeer is trying to go for an aim shot, because you need to get pressure somehow, and aim shot's really the only thing that you have here. It's their only, like, their second offensive move, their second and last offensive move, which is the aim shot. When you're playing the Immortal Team, you have Beast Found, and you have aim shot to, if you're in a really good spot, to potentially get a death throw. Like, if your opponent just wants to keep their character at 0 HP, you can go for the aim shot to just try and take them out. And so, even though I moved back twice with the Arbalest, the freaking Abomination just moves back because of Selfish, so, well, that's fun, but it's not the end of the world. At this point, if you lose an action, it's not too bad. If I lost an action by like round 6, as you could see, I didn't have enough to win, because if I had lost like a single action, it would have just been over. But since it's round 9 by now, and since I've already taken a character out, I can sort of afford losing an action or two at this point. So right now the Abomination just passes and I can go for my actions, and you know, slowly but surely I will whittle my opponent down. This is still rough, but I will be able to whittle them down here. They're gonna go for their Musketeer action. They are getting quite high on stress actually, and I do have Zealous, so they might actually have to ranging shot here, because Zealous does do an okay amount of stress if I want to go for it. Because there's really no other character I can hit right now. Stunning the Men-at-Arms is still very unreliable, stunning the Abomination is now quite unreliable as well. But I actually don't have Zealous, sorry, I have Warg of Light. But I get lucky enough to go Courageous, and as we all know, Courageous is absolute BS. And yeah, there goes the stress heal, and it's GG, so that's a win. Another win for the Jesser WD, and now here we go on to the third match, and this is definitely going to be the most intense one. I do recommend, if you're watching all the way to this point in the video, I do recommend you watch this one to the end, because this was an absolutely awesome one. So I should mention that these matches were actually being broadcast to the Chinese community, so Tiger Finger Man was actually broadcasting them, and I wasn't aware of this. I was only aware that he was broadcasting the matches after they actually happened. So, and it wasn't even him that told me; it was another person in the Chinese community. So that's not very cool. I do like it if people tell me that they're actually streaming their matches or whatever. But you know, it's whatever, because I was playing this not super competitively. I was playing this in a way of you know, let's practice, right? That's how I was playing this. So yeah, here we have Ship Stress number 4, so it has the Occultist and the Flagellant, and this is a very, very difficult matchup for all the stress teams, because the Immortal Team, it has a good matchup against anything, honestly, apart from something that completely counters it, which yeah, I didn't want to play. I'm here to practice. I know that there's a team or two that completely counter Immortal Team, but I want to see how my other teams that I usually play do against it. And it does really well against stress teams, because ranging shot is very difficult to push through. It has a lot of anti-stress trinkets. For example, the Flagellant has Gauntlet of Absolution and Suffer. Suffer actually gives you minus 40% stress taken for 3 rounds, and a Gauntlet of Absolution, it's literally impossible to stress him out. The Musketeer can just keep dropping that ranging shot, and she's gonna do a lot of stress healing, and she's also gonna do minus stress taken and give you plus accuracy. So my game plan here, is actually to stress the Musketeer out, because I know there is one weakness with the Immortal Team when you're actually playing against stress teams. It's actually the Musketeer. Even though she's guarded, it is the Musketeer, because you can see that you only have 2 numbing instances, and you drop one on the Abomination, you drop one on the Men-at-Arms, and the Musketeer is kind of left hanging. She can be guarded, and she has Bolster, and she has her own stress heal, and she has the Tincture of Iodine, which also gives you minus 15% stress taken, but it's still not enough if you have a lot of stress output like I have today. I have Flagellant with Rain of Sorrows and with the Crimson Hook, so that's as much pressure as you typically would have, and I have an Occultist here to just drop those tentacles. And here's the thing, the reason I pushed the Men-at-Arms to the back is because now, with the Men-at-Arms guarding the Musketeer, I can hit both of them at the same time, even though she's guarded. And of course, the Men-at-Arms guard only gives you prot, bleed, and blight resistance. It doesn't give you minus stress taken like the Doggy guard does. So I can genuinely stress this Musketeer out, and I know from playing with the Immortal Team that it's very difficult to heal the Musketeer's own stress, because she takes more stress than the other characters and she only heals 12, which, you know, it's a good amount, but if you have a lot of stress output going into her, you're eventually going to get an Affliction, and once you get an Affliction on a Musketeer, she might go Irrational, she might go Fearful, she might go Hopeless, she might go Paranoid, she might start passing, she might start doing very stupid things. And that's exactly what we want to go for here. So we're gonna go for another Abyssal Artillery while I still can, before that Men-at-Arms moves out of position, because that's really what he has to do. I was very surprised that Tiger Finger Man wasn't moving out of position, because round 1 he went for, what was it? I think a guard, immediate guard after the pull, so that was definitely the right play. And then round 2 he had to bolster, and now he has to guard again, or else the guard is dropped. And if he drops the guard, then the Musketeer is definitely gonna get hit, she's gonna get bled, and she's gonna have a really horrible time. So you're gonna have to wait until round 4 before you can finally move out of this terrible spot that you've been put in, and so you don't get hit by the Abyssal Artilleries and the Rain of Stars on both of them together. Because of course, if the Men-at-Arms is in positions 3 or 4, if the Musketeer is also in the back line, I can hit both of them, but if the Men-at-Arms moves out, I can no longer hit the Musketeer. So that's what has to happen here. I was also little bit surprised that the flashlight didn't move back. That was definitely an idea, but he's gonna end up just deciding on going for a claim. It's a bit of a weird play, I will say, but it is what they went for. So at this point, I'm just gonna transform and rage the Abomination here. It looks like a bit of a weird play, but after you play the Butcher's Circus for as long as I have, like, it is expectable to do something like this. There's really no other character I can pressure. I could go for the Flagellant, but he just has too much healing. It's not gonna accomplish anything. I need to go for the Abomination here to make sure that he goes down to this store and make sure that he doesn't output pressure on me, because if he has to spend a turn healing, that's a turn he's not spending on dropping Beast Smiles against my side. If they drop Beast Smiles or Manacles against my side, they're slowly getting closer to their win, because they have to do a lot less pressure to me than I have to do to them, because they keep healing, they keep stress healing, they just keep going ham on the defensive and on the sustain. I don't have sustain, I don't have any stress heals. I do have infinite healing with the Occultist, but it's not very reliable healing. It's not like it's Musketeer or Flagellant healing. It's not quite as good. And finally the Man-at-Arms moves forward and doesn't allow me to drop a Rain of Sorrows onto that Musketeer. So she's at about 60 stress and she has a lot of horror on her, but I feel like at this point enough pressure was output to the point that the Musketeer is going to have a really terrible time here. She might just be going up to 100 stress with all the horror that I've done. You can see that 25 stress. It was 50, but it went down to 25. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. She only has half stress taken buff, while the other characters are about 70, so she has that little bit of a weakness. Not having that numbing instance, not having that content of absolution makes her a clear weakness for the Immortal Team that you can exploit if you have the right tools for it. And let me tell you, if I didn't have the right tools for it, this would just be a complete loss from round one, first action. Just you roll into the match, you see the coin flip, doesn't matter if you win the coin flip or you lose it, you just surrender. Because if I had, instead of Rain of Stars, if I had Reclaim, and for example Reclaim Spiked Bat, that would be a better matchup against damage teams, but it would be a loss against this team, essentially a loss, because I would just have no way of doing enough pressure to my opponent. So at this point, considering that I no longer have the Rain of Stars onto the backline, I just end up deciding on a punish here onto the Abomination. And why do I drop a punish? Not because I think I'm gonna get a death blow, but because if I drop this punish, I'm able to drop him to that store, most likely. And with this, even though he gets a great heal right now, this is still good for me, because now he has a Death Store recovery. And what does Death Store recovery mean? It means that you take that you do minus 5% damage, you have minus 2 accuracy, and you have a permanent plus 10% stress taken. So that means I'm going to be able to do more stress to my opponents. It's essentially countering one ranging shot buff forever. So that is quite a good thing to get, getting those Death Door debuffs on your opponent, because that's going to mean that I might actually have a chance of taking that Abomination out through stress. It is exactly what I want here. So I just de-transform and go for the V-Spell before I get, before I get hit by any shenanigans. And of course with the V-Spell there means that they can't stun me again, they can't really go for too much stuff like that, so that's quite a good thing. So here the Musketeer did indeed take enough stress, I had enough horror output on her, and she went abusive, which is definitely not what I wanted. Abusive has a chance of moving forward, but you have to be very unlucky for it to move forward. As in, I've never seen it move forward, but I believe it can move forward. It's a bit of a meme, but I really think it can move forward. I'm pretty sure I've seen it happen before, but it just hasn't happened again. It's probably like a 0.001% chance or something of the likes. So yeah, the Musketeer is abusive, which all it gives me really is just have her do an act out here and then to do a little bit more stress, which is definitely helpful. I'd rather have abusive than not have anything, but I would have really preferred something like Irrational, which could have moved her forward, could have made her go for, like, I don't know, at this point, like a heal on herself when it was really unnecessary. She could have made her pass, would have been really good just to prevent those ranging shots from coming through, but I didn't get quite lucky enough for that. But then again, it's not the end of the world. But the thing is, you might be looking at this team and you might be thinking, wait, Shep, the Flagellant doesn't have punish, right? Flagellant doesn't have punish. If you just keep your Flagellant alive, they can't win at the end of the match, because the Men-at-Arms can't deal with him, the Flagellant can't deal with him, the Abomination only has Manacles, which is going to do, like, I don't know, like 3 damage to your Flagellant, and the Musketeer only has Buckshot, so if you just keep your Flagellant alive, there's no way you lose the match, right? Well, not exactly. with the stress heals and with the healing that they have, even if my flagellant is alive at the end, if it's just a 1v4 or even a 1v3, I probably won't win. I need like a 1v2 to be able to win, because they just have too many guards, too much stress healing, too much healing, and I will not be able to push through, which is quite sad, but such is the way of the Butcher Circus. I need more. I need to get a kill, at least, to make sure that my flagellant can be the raid boss that he actually wants to be, because he's definitely a raid boss. He's the biggest reason that the Immortal Team needs all the shenanigans that it has against stress, because if it was just a regular old stress team, it would probably win. It wouldn't have to deal with the flagellant at the end of the match. It could be more like a regular team, where it can lose a character and still win. But if you're dealing with a flagellant, if you lose a character, you're probably not going to have too much of a win chance. So here they actually let their flagellant stay at 0 HP, instead of going for the heal with the redeem, because they want to keep the redeem, and they kind of wanted to use that death blow resistance. They do have last breath collar, so that's a little bit of extra death blow rest. So once again, we saw, just like in the, was it the first match or the second? I can't remember too well, but they just let that 8% chance stay there, and just gave me that very, very small chance of winning the match on the spot. But I do not think it's the flagellant stays alive and everything's perfectly okay. No, not perfectly okay, but not too bad at the same time. My team is overall looking quite fine, I will say, apart from the Abomination. He's a little bit low on HP. You might be wondering, well, why did this Man-at-Arms move forward here? Well, there's two reasons for it. The biggest reason for it is obviously because you want to drop B-Spile, so you just move forward so you can have your Abomination drop B-Spile, because it's a more important action than your Man-at-Arms action. As long as you still have the guard onto the Musketeer, you can just use him to reposition and just drop the B-Spiles whenever you want. And at this point I'm thinking, and the second reason for it is because if I had gone for a pull onto the flagellant, the Man-at-Arms would have been in position 3 after the pull, and if the Man-at-Arms is in position 3, you know what happens. I get to just go for more Vessel Artillery, more Rain of Sorrows, and I'm having fun, right? That's exactly what I want to do here. So there goes a Manacles onto my Abomination. You might be saying, oh, 9 damage repulse, quite good. It's not going to make a difference. It's genuinely not going to make a difference. Even if I do 9 damage there, my opponent doesn't even need to go for a heal on there. Like, the Flagellant just dropping 0 HP is going to heal, like an odd Reclaim here and there is going to heal, everything's going to be perfectly alright. And they could have gotten a Death Blow chance if their Manacles had dealt enough damage, but thankfully it didn't, because of that Death Star recovery debuff. It didn't do enough damage, and now I can stay alive here. So I am going to use up my first Absolution. I do have an Exsanguinate Bleed on me, which is quite rough, but that's, I believe, 1 Exsanguinate down for my opponent, and still no Redeems down, so it's round 7, and I have only wasted 1 of the Flagellant heals, so that's not quite good. Really, the only thing I have going for me is the fact that I've dealt so much stress to that Musketeer earlier on the match. So at this point, while the Man-at-Arms wants to move away, he can't, because if he moves away, the guard gets dropped, and if the guard gets dropped, then I can hit the Musketeer, no problem. You might be wondering, well, if this is something that kind of troubles this stress team, why doesn't the Man-at-Arms just bring Protector's Guide? Well, the thing is, this is actually not the original setup of the Immortal Team. This is not the setup that we actually saw in the tournament. In the tournament, the Man-at-Arms actually had Pit Fighter's Helm and Numbing Instance, and it was the Flagellant that actually had the Exotic Snuff, so he wouldn't get pushed and so he wouldn't get stunned. But the thing is, Tiger Fingerman has made this so you have a better Man-at-Arms guard with just all that stun resistance, meaning that you cannot get stunned, meaning that you can keep guarding, which has given it a much better matchup against the stun teams. It essentially makes it so after the guard breaks are gone, you just win against the stun teams, which definitely wasn't a thing before. The stuns, like a Vestal stun, was a 60% chance on the Man-at-Arms, even with Numbing Instance. So it was quite unlikely that your stun resistance would work just with Numbing Instance. So having that Exotic Snuff there definitely helps you out quite a bunch. And even though we saw that Pit Fighter's Helm gives you a lot of protection, you can just guard twice with the Man-at-Arms if you really want to have protection on him, and overall you're going to be okay. So I was able to drop another Abyssal Artillery and another Rain of Sorrows on that Musketeer, while the Man-at-Arms was stuck in position 3, so that was quite a good thing for me, obviously. And at this point I just need to keep outputting pressure. I could go once again for the Demon's Pull, but having to Demon's Pull twice doesn't really feel all that good. Keep in mind that my Man-at-Arms has to drop command every 3 actions or so, because my characters do need that accuracy. My Flagellant and my Occultist absolutely need that accuracy for the Abyssal Artillery and the Rain of Sorrows. So I do have to keep dropping that every once in a while. So the ranging shots are slowly countering the stress, and this doesn't look like too good of a situation for me, because it isn't. I need to keep dropping the abilities, I need to keep being aggressive. I'm thinking I might be able to take out the Flagellant, I might be able to drop him to 0 HP, I could exhaust him, and I just end up going for it, hoping that I would do enough damage to bring him down to 0, and then I could potentially, I mean not potentially, I would force him to go for a heal, because if he didn't, I would have kind of like a 20% chance of getting the kill on him by the start of next round, because I get to go first, and if you've already used your Musketeer heal. So that was kind of my idea here, but sadly I didn't do enough damage, so the Flagellant doesn't actually get dropped to 0 HP, which is really annoying, but you know, I mean, what can you do? Sometimes your strategies work out, sometimes they don't, and the Flagellant is going to stay alive, at least for a while. Of course, you don't have to go suffer at this point, I mean, you don't have to go redeem at this point. Let's keep in mind that Tiger Finger Man is a person that plays like 3 hours of Immortal Team every single day, just full on Immortal Team, Immortal Team, Immortal Team. They do all the best plays. It's something that the Chinese players actually have that feels very fun to play against, is that they always go for the most precise, the best plays they can go for. It's really quite fun to play against them, I'll say. It feels like I'm playing against someone that has been playing for as long as I am and knows all the little shenanigans I can go for and counters all of them beautifully, but at the same time I can still go for even more shenanigans, go for more attacks, and that's quite fun. Technically, in chess, if you do 10 attacks, like 10 very powerful attacks, you're eventually going to win, because your opponent's defense just crumbles. That's something that Garry Kasparov said. If you attack your opponent 10 times, eventually they will crumble by the 10th one. So hopefully that's something that also kind of works in the Butcher's Circus. You can see that in that previous match in round 1 and round 2, I had to have the finale pressure for a kill like probably about 10 times, if you think about it, before I actually had the finale to go for the kill and have the best possible chance of taking the W. But you know, sometimes even with the 10 attacks, it's still not going to work out too well for you. So yeah, here you might be wondering, Shep, what the hell are you doing? Your Abominations at this store, if you already used 2 absolutions, why the hell did you move him forward to position 1? That doesn't accomplish anything for you, does it? It does. It means that if my opponent wants to go for a death blow, they have to go for a death blow with the manacles. And at this point, if you're the kind of person that would see the Abomination here and just go for a heal with the Occultist, you don't know what you're doing, because if you play against the Musketeer stress team, if you play against the Immortal Team, if you're letting your foot off the pedal for even a second here, if you do that, you're not going to have enough stress, you're just going to heal all the stress up, and all your pressure is going to be gone. You won't be able to kill those characters, and even though you're going for heals, the rest of your team is going to be eventually whittled down, and you're going to lose the match. You're going to die a very painful death after about 20 rounds. So I have to keep going for the pressure, I have to keep stressing those characters out. As hopeless as it seems, at this point I have to keep doing it. So one thing I could have done is I could have gone for a guard at this point onto the Abomination, but instead I just decided on the Bellow. And the reason I went for that is because since I actually just got a crit with the Occultist, it might actually be worth it to go for a heal, because I will probably heal for a lot. And if I heal for a lot, I can make sure that after I use my second Abomination action, I can wait out a lot of that DOT, and after all the DOT wears out, I can keep him alive for way longer than I did if I had gone for the heal by round 9. But sadly, I get hit by the 25% death blow chance, so very unlucky of me, but I'm not going to complain too much about the RNG. I've gotten quite lucky so far with the crits, so it's not really something I'm going to complain about, like, oh, if I had gotten that, if I hadn't gotten 25% death blow there, this match would be completely different. You know, you take a risk, you have to live up to it, right? That's kind of how it goes here. So now I could keep dropping the Demon's Pulls, but I have to keep dropping Abyssal Artilleries here just to do more stress, because if I drop Demon's Pull and then I drop another Demon's Pull, I'm doing essentially half the stress I would be if I just drop Abyssal Artillery. And considering that those characters are already at 50 stress, I'm getting them slowly, very slowly closer to that affliction, right? And at this point, the thing is, even if you want to keep focusing down the Musketeer, already down one character, I can focus her down pretty hard, but since she went abusive, since she didn't go irrational, even if I had a lot of pressure on her, you have to keep in mind that they can just reclaim, and even if I can get in an ability or two every once in a while, they can reclaim, they can self-heal, they can stress heal, I just won't be able to get a kill. I really need a lot of attacking actions, and if the rest of their team's just doing perfectly fine, they can focus all their defensive actions onto that Musketeer. And the Immortal Team is something that kind of has like a care package. If you have a character getting close to dying, you guard them, you suffer them, you reclaim them, and you heal them or you stress heal them. It really has a lot of defensive abilities. It's quite fun to see. If you see that someone's struggling, everyone becomes like the most empathetic person ever and just does everything to save that person. You will see that happen later down the match. So yeah. The Occultist here is already taking a little bit of blight because of that Abomination's riposte. Thankfully it doesn't hit every single time because I do have 40 dodge on the Occultist, but it is going to hit most of the time because between the ranging shot giving you a 10 accuracy and the command buffs giving you more accuracy as well, you're going to have a lot of accuracy on that Abomination, even without the Regis Cloak, which is something that you definitely want to have, but not in this team because you need that extra blight chance so you can actually blight your opponent reliably, and you also need that numbing instance so you can actually win the stress matchups, because if you don't have numbing instance, you're going to take way too much stress on the Abomination, you're not going to win the stress matchups, which, you know, is something that the Immortal Team should definitely almost always win, unless it's a stress team that just has like 4 full-on crazy stress attackers. So the thing is, the team that I'm playing here would probably lose, and I mean probably lose against WD, it would probably lose against, maybe not Helicon, but it would lose against WD, it would lose against Jester WD, it would lose a lot of matchups because not having that reclaim, but against the Immortal Team it has a little bit of a better matchup, because it just has so much attack, and that's quite good. It's not what I would consider a counter, it's still a very balanced team. It's not a counter like, I should have mentioned it earlier, but the full-on counter to this team would be something like Flagellant, Shieldbreaker, Jester, Antiquarian, because you have AoE death blows with the Antiquarian, so the Flagellant can never stay at this star. You have guard break, so the man-at-arms action is kind of nullified, you know, you can't do anything too well. You have a lot of dodge, so the Peace Vial gets kind of hampered a little bit, and you also have the Flagellant, so if you just kill a character, you're just gonna win. And yeah, having between guard break, the DOT, and the finale, you're essentially going to confirm a kill, and after you confirm a kill, if you have a Flagellant on your side, it's very difficult to win if you're playing with the Immortal Team. So that's the full-on counter to the Immortal Team if you want to bring it, but of course you're not going to bring that every single match. You're going to have to fight the Immortal Team playing with your regular stuff. So here the Abomination actually just regen for 16, which is a huge amount, and definitely not something I like to see, but that's because he got healed by the Musketeer and then he got regen, so he just stays perfectly alive. And at this point, my man-at-arms at 0 HP. Wait, Shep, but you have Redeem, why don't you drop the Redeem immediately? Once again, if I just start dropping redeems left, right, and center, if I just start healing, I'm gonna relinquish too much pressure. The characters aren't even afflicted. I'm just gonna lose on the spot. It's really not gonna work. So here, finally, the stress heal actually fails from the ranging shot. It has a 15% chance of failing every single time, and it finally fails after 12 rounds, which essentially means that I'm gonna get an affliction on this man-at-arms. There's no way to prevent it at this point, which I'm really quite happy about, obviously. So here I go for another Rain of Stars. What I want to do is I want to have my Flagellant drop to 0 HP and then go for a Redeem, because then I'll have a much bigger heal because of the Flagellant dropping to 0, right? That's what I want to do, and I want to make sure that my characters stay alive for as long as possible, but I don't want to spend too many actions on saving them. I want to spend actions on attacking my opponent so they can't attack me back because I'm attacking them and they have to play defensively. That's what I want to do. So the man-at-arms is now at 0 HP and at quite a lot of stress, mostly because all the Abyssal Artilleries and all the Rain of Stars have been putting a lot of pressure onto him, and even though the Flagellant's doing his absolute best to stay alive, to keep him alive, it's not been the easiest thing ever. So the Flagellant definitely has to drop a Redeem at this point. If you don't, you're just going to potentially suffer the 13%, and you know, first it was an 8, now it's a 13. It's a little bit too risky to go for it at this point. I will say you're not quite at the breaking point yet. You can still go for that Redeem. Speaking of redeems, I click my Flagellant, I double crit heal the other characters, so that was quite lucky if I do say so myself, and I go for a big redeem onto that man-at-arms, just heal him up a very, very nice amount, and now he can eat about like another, like 5 Beast Smiles before he drops to 0 HP again, so that's quite good. That is quite good that he's gonna stay alive for a little bit longer. Of course, he's not the most important character here. Most important character is the Occultist. He's the one that's outputting the most amount of stress, but once again, I do need the Man-at-Arms alive, so the Occultist stays alive, because I'm dropping command buffs and I need those command buffs. So I get hit by another Riposte, which is quite annoying, but once again, I'm doing more crits with the Vessel Artillery. It's just crit after crit after crit with this Occultist, and that's really helping me out here. If it weren't for this amount of crits, I would never have a chance. So if you look at all the other Shep stress teams, if you look at, for example, Houndmaster, it wouldn't really have a good matchup because the Riposte would kind of counter it. The Doggy would probably be dead by now, so it would be quite rough. It would definitely be quite rough having to play with a Doggy against this. You would do a lot of stress, but you would probably just die, so it wouldn't work out well. If you had an Antiquarian, it would be that, but even worse, because she doesn't do any stress at all, and she has Blights, which are countered by the Musketeer. So if you had an Antiquarian Chef stress, you just lose on the spot. If you had a Grave Robber Chef stress, you might actually win. Some people say that Panic Darts is just a win against Immortal Team. I don't actually believe that. I think that's kind of BS, because it has a lot of stress ceiling, it has Suffer to clear the DOT, and if you're only doing stress and pressure to one character, the Man-at-Arms can guard it and kind of just shift the pressure around if he really wants to. Of course, it would still be rough. It's kind of about as good as a matchup as it is with the Occultist, although I believe the Occultist is a little bit of a better matchup than just having the Grave Robber to drop those Panic Darts. At least that's what I feel right now, because all the Blight can be countered by Suffer and by healing with the Musketeer. So I feel like having the horror and having just the absolute unbelievable amount of stress output that the Abyss Artillery has is going to be overall better for you. Of course, if you had something like Kalashnikov stress, you would be able to do a lot of stress, but you'd also get countered by the Riposte a little bit, and then you wouldn't really have a way of killing the casualty of the match, but thankfully doesn't have Punish. But overall, it would still be probably pretty rough thing, because the match would be decided in the first 6 rounds, and having a match decided in the first 6 rounds with a team that doesn't have a lot of sustain, a team that doesn't have a flagellant would be really quite rough. I think that the Immortal Team would be able to withstand it, so most teams really don't have a good time against the Immortal Team. And if you don't bring a lot of stress output characters, if you just have more of a defensive team, like if you have like an Arbalist Chef stress or something, or like a defensive stress team with like protection, it's just over. If you are not on point with the stress output, you're not gonna have enough stress output to counter the ranging shot. It's just that good with all the minus stress that the opponent is gonna have here. So I just keep dropping Rain of Stars. You can see that the stress numbers that I'm outputting are essentially garbage, but they are slowly rising up, slowly but surely, and my opponent is getting to the breaking point here. The characters are all essentially dropping to 0 HP, apart from, you know, the reclaims and the regens and that, but my characters are also dropping to 0 HP from the Beast file, so we're both in a very rough spot here. I would say that I'm in a bit of a worse spot, because they still have a lot of heals to go through, they still have a lot of stress healing, and my characters, 2 of my characters are about to go Afflicted, and they're also about to drop to Death Star. So I don't click my Occultist immediately, because of course I don't really wanna be at Death Star voluntarily. I'd rather just wait a little bit, and here the Flagellant actually has to drop another heal, unless they want to get hit by Weakening Curse, which is likely a death blow. So they're gonna do the Exsanguinate, they're gonna hit my Man-at-Arms, and there's the funny crit 60. I do quite miss the crit 60 on the heal with the Last Breath Collar. You typically heal for 30 with the Last Breath Collar when you're at 0 HP, or, you know, very low amounts of HP. And if you get a crit on it, it's 60. I do quite miss it. I used to play Chef Stress with that, with the Last Breath Collar. I ended up just shifting it out for the Rain of Stars, because Rain of Stars really is quite good. There's some teams that you really need it. If you don't have it, you're just gonna have a horrible time. For example, like Last Stand. Last Stand is a very good team without Riposte, but I would say that the Immortal Team would win against Last Stand, because its stress output is kind of limited, and it doesn't have stress healing. So if that's your stress team, this team is just gonna win. Same thing for damage teams that try being a little slower most likely, or damage teams that try being too fast. Those are just not gonna have a good time against the Immortal Team, unless you get quite lucky and just get a lot of crits. And with those crits, you just get a kill early, and of course, if your opponent makes a single mistake, they lose the match. You have to keep that in mind. Immortal Team is one of the most difficult ones to play in the Butcher Circus. If you make one mistake, one slight misplay, one of your characters is going to drop to 0 HP when he shouldn't have, and then it's all over. The pressure just going to mount up quite a lot. Unless your opponent's also doing misplays, and which in that case you might get away with it, of course. So here the men-at-arms, actually this is quite an important action, because the men-at-arms tried to move forward, but the Abomination said no because they're fearful. And what happened was the men-at-arms just decided to guard the Musketeer again, even though the guard was already lasting there for 2 rounds. So you guard twice, not because of the protection, but because if there's a fearful pass, or if you want to move forward again, you can actually do it without relinquishing the guard, which you definitely don't want to do. You still don't want to relinquish the guard. If you let the guard go at this point, there's just going to be Demon Spool into probably Punish, and the Musketeer is just going to have a horrible time. Just absolutely horrible time. So here we have an Abomination pass, which is just wonderful. Of course, my goal is set Death Star in stun, so I've already suffered 1 Death Star check, but I'm alive, that's what matters. And normally you would have enough stress here with the bell, but you know, you're playing against Immortal Team Abomination, so you're never gonna do 16 stress with a Bellow. So there's that, even if they're at that star. So the Abusive does a little bit of more stress to that Abomination. It's gonna go for a heal. The Abomination doesn't refuse it, thankfully for my opponent here. And my Occultist has already suffered 2 Death Star checks, so he's in a rough spot. Let me tell you that much. And now the Man-at-Arms is down to 0 HP as well, and he ends up guarding that A-bomb. So that A-bomb was in a terrible place. You can see that this was the care package I was talking about, you know. The Abomination was at 0 HP, 184 stress, and bleeding out like crazy. Now he's got no bleeds, he's guarded, he's at a good amount of HP, you know, he's overall having a good time. He's not having a good time with that backline, because the Abyssal Artillery is coming in hot, and it's gonna get a Death Sword check against that Man-at-Arms. Not quite the kill just yet, but it's gonna get a Death Sword check, and it's gonna do a lot of stress against both of them. Even though it didn't get the kill, the stress is there. The Man-at-Arms now has Death Star recovery, so he's gonna be taking even more stress. And Shep, you have redeemed. Please save your Occultist. I don't care. I'm not scared about the Occultist's life. He's not gonna die. Here's the thing. My opponent has to keep healing, because if they don't heal, they die. And if they are healing, they're not hitting me, and I have to keep doing pressure to counter their healing. I just need to keep on being aggressive if I want to win this match. Sure, I'll go for a heal once I actually drop to Death Star, but until I'm at Death Star, I'm not gonna heal. They have to keep going for those heals there, or else they're just gonna have heart attack, then they're not gonna have regen. And now I drop a Bellow here, and the Bellow is definitely doing some very nice amounts of stress. What I wanted there to happen was either the Fearful or the Abusive would deal stress to the Abomination from the Act Out, and then the Abomination would have a heart attack and just die immediately from the horror. But there's 2 passes in a row from the Abomination, so he doesn't get to go for a stun on me again and take out my Occultist. Like, if this was chess, it looks like every single one of my characters is hanging, or you know, like my Bishop is hanging, my Rook is hanging. It kind of looks like that. Wait, who's the Bishop here? Who's the Rook? Man-at-Arms is definitely the Rook. I feel like the Occultist might be the Bishop, or maybe the Queen, King. I don't know, but yeah. No, he's definitely the king here. Yeah, if he dies, you lose, right? That's kind of the thing here. So yeah, I go for another Abyssal Artillery, and the Abomination passes for the 3rd time in a row, and that is just brutal. 3 passes in a row when you could have been stunning, healing, transforming. 3 passes in the most crucial of stages. It's just really, really difficult to counter it, you know. If you're afflicted, you can't counter your character deciding to pass, obviously. And at this point, I see that the Man-at-Arms at 0 HP is at 0 HP, and I go for an Exsanguinate. I don't think that my Exsanguinate is going to do 6 damage. It's definitely not going to do that. What it is going to do, though, is it was going to put the Man-at-Arms in a position where if you were to click him, he would die, because he would have too much bleed on him. And if you were to refuse a Stuffer, he would definitely die. If you were to refuse a heal, he would definitely die, and that's exactly what I wanted. But of course, my opponent, you know, he's gonna try countering it. There was a heart attack there from the Act Out, so that wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it's not the end of the world. You might be looking at this like, wait, why did he reclaim the Musketeer? That's so weird. Well, he has to do that. If he doesn't do that, then the Musketeer will die here, because after a Bellow, if there's an Act Out, which sure enough there is an Act Out, she would take too much stress from the horror, and she would probably die. If she didn't die this round, she would die in the next one. and it would be very, very difficult, so very difficult for her. So at this point, she's gonna heal from the regen, and she wants to go for a stress heal. She also wants to heal this. Oh yeah, she definitely wants to heal the man-at-arms, or else he just dies. She wants to heal the man-at-arms. She wants to do so many things that she cannot do, and even then the opponent here has to defend her. And the reason they have to defend her is because this is a very important point. If I go weakening curse, I'm definitely gonna do 2 damage, and that's a kill onto the musketeer. And you know the flagellant is hanging, but at this point, going for the flagellant is not the play, because it's unlikely that you get the kill on him, and you have to get the kills on the other characters. What I really want to do at this point is I want either an Abyssal Artillery crit on the musketeer, killing her immediately, or an Abyssal Artillery hit and then an act out, but we don't get an act out, so she gets to stay alive here with the regen. So, you know, my kill pressure loses, I lose some of my kill pressure here, which is quite annoying. Another thing I really wanted to do was to go for a punish onto the Abomination, because if I dropped a punish on him, he would just die immediately from the stress of the punish, but of course my final stays, my opponent knows that, and they don't have to save the Abomination for now. So here, there's just a ranging shot, because really the biggest threat here to your side is the heart attacks. Heart attacks and the bleeds together and the Hoarder. So if you can get to just counter some of that stress, you can stay alive for longer, and that's exactly what you want to do. You want to heal with the flagellant, you want to stress heal everyone, and you want to get back to dropping beast piles so you can actually kill both my characters. My opponent's been trying to stabilize the situation for about 6 rounds, and they've just been unable to. Here the Abomination has to heal, or else he will just die, but I get to go for Reign of Sorrows. The Musketeer is at 0 HP, and it was just 1 action too late for my opponent, because they did have a redeem. The redeem was ready, but you know what they say. Remember that earlier 25% death on my Abomination? What goes around comes around, and that Musketeer goes down. They had to make a decision. Either you save the Musketeer or you save the Abomination. The Abomination had a confirmed chance of dying, the Musketeer had a 25% chance of dying, so they went for the stress heal with the Abomination first, and that just ended up leading to the Musketeer dying. They had to make a decision, they made it, and now they have to live with it. They took a risk, but you know, they took the least amount of risk possible, and you're still not having a good time. The Flagellant did not go for a heal because he wanted to be greedy, he went for a Suffer instead, and now he's gone to a 13% death blow chance. The Flagellant just says, "Flee from the holy bearer, you impious fiends," and he's just amazing. It was just an amazing character, but okay, Fearful now actually does the correct action, moves back into a beast pile. Normal is over here, actually, if you want me to be perfectly honest, because one thing that has happened, which might not be very noticeable at this point, is that the Abomination hasn't used both his transformations. So even though he's the last if he stays as the last character alive, he can actually beat my Flagellant just by going for the Rage. And the Rage would maybe just do enough damage if you get lucky enough for it to do enough damage. Of course, you're fearful, but you know, you can always hope for a win. That's definitely what you have to do. This is 2 players not wanting to lose for even a second for the entire duration of 20 rounds. It's really what's happening here. So the reason I went for a Bellow first, rather than a Weakening Curse, is because I want this Man-at-Arms to go out. I want the enemy Man-at-Arms to just die. I'm gonna drop a Weakening Curse on him, and now he's definitely dead between the stress and the horror that's being output. He cannot heal it anymore, and now it's gonna be essentially a 1v3. And the thing is, my Occultist at this door, my Man-at-Arms is not too far behind, and the Occultist gets hit again. He survived how many death blows? 3 death blows already. Yeah, this Occultist has survived for a lot longer than he should have, but I guess there is justice in this world if you consider the Abomination that died a little bit too early. And now at this point, I am gonna go for a misplay, and why is that a misplay? Why is dropping a punish on the Abomination here a misplay? Well, the reason it's a misplay is because I should have waited for the Man-at-Arms to die to give the Abomination the last character standing buff, which is plus 10% damage, so then he can hit my Flagellant harder, so I can actually drop the Redeem before both my other characters die. Because I definitely don't want to have the Flagellant as the last character alive, and still have a Redeem left. I don't want that to happen. My rule of thumb is Redeems before Exsanguinate, so you don't have, you know, your Flagellant is the last character standing, and you've already used up your Exsanguinates, and it's the end of the match, and you still have both your Redeems there. So the reason I actually went for a heal here with the Occultist rather than a Weakening Curse is because it's not because I care about the Occultist's life, because I've been sacrificing him for the past like 10 rounds or so. I've been keeping him at the store for the past 10 rounds. I would gladly take the stress, but the thing is, if I go for a weakening curse and the riposte kills me, the weakening curse will not do stress. That's how Butcher Circus works. You don't apply stress, you don't apply debuffs or bleeds or blights or horror if your ability, if the enemy riposte actually kills your character. So here I was just gonna go for the guard, and my opponent just ends up deciding on surrender, because after a guard, from me, it would be way too difficult for them to win, borderline impossible, and it's just GG. It's 3 wins for the Shepherd Doggy, and now I'm gonna play with possibly the worst matchup we've had so far. I'm gonna play going second with the Goliath comp. So Goliath comp, very nice team. It has a lot of weaknesses for sure. Leper has a lot of weaknesses, but we are still gonna go for it. And this is almost like the Jester WV. It's very, very similar instead, except of an Abomination, which is a very dynamic character that can do just about anything. We have a Leper, which is gonna have to deal with a very, very chunky front line of 40 prot on both characters, minimum, because the Man at Arms is probably gonna guard twice, and yeah, it's not gonna be too much fun, is it, Shep? No, it isn't. So I get immediately stunned, which is interesting for my opponent to immediately go for a stun on my Jester. I think that what they want to do is just delay my buffs as much as possible, so they can win that way. But once again, it's a very weird play because their win condition is Beast Smile, so I'm not entirely sure why they really went for the stun there. I guess if they do this, if they do prevent me from buffing up my Jester, I won't be able to get a win. They drop a Reclaim here on the Musketeer because that's really the only thing they can do, and if I do want to drop a sniper shot on her, I will not have that confirmed kill quite immediately, right? So here I could drop a Zealous, or I could drop a stun. I just drop a stun, and it's a 20% chance. You're never gonna get it. It's sad, but it's just how it is. You're gonna go for that 20%. I'm just gonna keep missing and missing and missing. Not missing. I'm gonna keep failing. The Man at Arms is just going to be an absolute fail here. So since you healed the Musketeer, I'm going to hit the Abomination instead, especially since he doesn't have riposte. So I'm going to hit him pretty hard, and I'm not quite sure what my opponent said here. Oh no, I think he was talking about something the previous round. Their only reaction to the 3 fearful passes was at the end of the match. Just first they said GG, which, you know, honorable. I always say GG after the end of the match, and then they just said skip, 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 which is exactly what happened. Is skip, skip, skip. So you can see that's 2 crits, 2 attacks and 2 crits. So I'm getting quite lucky so far in terms of the actions, but they're not scared. They're not scared, and why would they be scared here? Because even if I shoot them right now, they're still fine. I shoot them, they heal, then I don't have my Jester action. I cannot go for a death blow. And even if I had my Jester action, there's no way that the Crusader would deal enough damage through 40% protection and the Musketeer heal. If it was not a Musketeer heal, if it was like, I don't know, like an Arbalest heal without a healing trinket, then sure, it would be a little bit worse, but yeah, she goes for the heal. There's no way that she would have healed for less than 10, so even though I get a crit stun, I do not get a stun, and I do not get him to go down to 0, so that's 3 crits on my side, by the way. Or is it more? No, yeah, that's 3 crits on my side. The Arbalest only got 1 crit. Only. She only got 1 crit so far, and the Jester, and the enemy Man-at-Arms is still alive. You can see just how tanky, just how difficult to kill this damn team actually is. Because even though I'm getting crits left, right, and center, I still don't have a kill on anyone. They just have regen, they have all the shenanigans. I could drop a Harvest, but not only does it not have a confirmed chance of hitting, and also it doesn't have a confirmed chance of bleeding. Even if it bled, it wouldn't completely counter the regen, so it wouldn't change too much. So here my opponent just clicks the Man-at-Arms, of course, and goes for the guard. So you might be wondering, wait, Shep, why did you drop a Dirk Stab there? Why did you drop a Dirk Stab instead of the other abilities? Well, the thing is, I'm not gonna get the kill this round. I know from my attacking actions, even though I have a lot of them, I know I'm not gonna get the kill this round. I was really hoping that Holy Lance would crit for 8 somehow, but it doesn't. The thing is, after the Musketeer heals, I'm just not gonna have enough to just take out that Man-at-Arms here, which is quite sad, but such is the way of the Witcher Circus. Even though I can go for a heal right now, it does enough, just barely with the heal. She can go for a heal, and then it's even unlikely that my Arbalest brings him back down to 0, because now he has plus healing received, so it's just so difficult, borderline impossible to get a kill onto these characters. Even if I get a crit right now, I'm not entirely sure if I would do enough damage. I don't even look at the damage rolls, because I'm quite sure I won't do enough. I was probably doing like 5 to 10 at that point, with against 70% protection. Maybe a little bit more, maybe like 6 to 11. But yeah, just really not a lot, and that's what you have to think of here. So they drop another beast file here that's slowly biting my characters out, and that's quite difficult here. So instead of the matches with the Gesture WD, where I had the Abomination to just break through that guard, this time I really can't do anything about the guard. The only thing I can do is I can just shoot the other characters so freaking hard that they're always under pressure. That's one thing I can do. And the other thing I can do is I can just keep hewing and zealousing through the guards, and with the Flagellant slowly bleeding himself down with Reclaim, either he's gonna have to drop the heals, or the Musketeer is going to have to heal him. And if he's dropping the heals, then he's exhausting himself. And if the Musketeer is dropping the heals, then she's not healing the other characters, and then I can potentially win that way. That's what I want here, obviously. So now I'm going to go for a chop. I only do 10 damage, sadly. You know, it's just Leopard things. At this point I'm thinking, goddamn Leopard, he sucks so much. It's literally what I'm thinking at this point. But yeah, I was hoping that I would do enough damage, and then I would do more damage somehow, and that maybe just get something going, but it's really quite difficult to do that. So here I'm just gonna go with my Crusader. I'm gonna try going for a stun again. It's a 20% chance I fail it. If I do get the stun, I wouldn't win the match because I never go first, but I would just have a better time here. Now they definitely have to go for the heal, because if they don't, I go Dark Sap. There's no 8% here. The kill chance is a lot better. It's like a 33, so they cannot afford just having that flash on die. And here, even though it would be technically better to heal the Man at Arms because you would have healed more HP overall, it doesn't even matter because Man at Arms is just perfectly fine. I just drop a Harvest here, hoping to do damage to him, just see if the Harvest can do enough bleed, and it just feels impossible. It just feels impossible to take this Man at Arms out. I'm thinking like, oh yes, this is when the prot goes away, and I'm like, what? It's still there, he still has 60 prot, how is it possible? And yeah, he still has that 60 prot, so it's still very difficult to kill him. He's at a big amount of HP, even though I've devoted pretty much every single resource to taking him out. My characters are blighting out, and even though I've gotten so many crits this match, I'm still not at a kill. This is just really annoying, but such is the way of the Butcher Circus, am I right? And yeah, this isn't looking too good, because now here comes another beast file, hits both my characters again, gets the blights again, because once again you do have the spike chain on that Abomination, so you actually have a very good blight chance. And now I have to keep healing. Even though the heal here is definitely not favorable for me, I have to keep healing or my Jester drops to Death's Door. After he drops to Death's Door, it's definitely over, because if he drops to Death's Door, he's gonna have, minus damage, and that's just terrible. And yeah, well, crit heal for 30. All those characters are at full HP. My Crusader's already blighting down to 0. My Jester's blighting down. I keep failing stuns. My characters are getting stressed out, and slowly but surely I am losing this match. I do have one thing on my side, one very small thing on my side, which is the fact that the Flagellant has been slightly exhausted, only slightly, and I can keep hitting him with Hue, and if he keeps exhausting himself, I will eventually be able to get a Dark Snap kill on him, but I don't feel like I'll have enough time to exhaust him through 5 big heals, which is what he has. Not to mention that with Last Breath Collar, you can heal him for a hell of a lot more with the Musketeer, so it's something that I actually quite like, this version of the Immortal Team over the other one. Even though so far it has been losing quite a bit, it feels like it's more dynamic having the Last Breath Collar there on the Flagellant rather than the Exotic Snuff. And then the Pitfighter's Helm onto the Man at Arms, because it still feels like the Man at Arms is impossible to kill. Because even if you had a mark here, even if you marked him, the Flagellant just goes suffer, and then the mark doesn't exist anymore, so, you know, who cares. Here my opponent actually goes for heal onto that Abomination, which is a bit of a weird play, I might say, because you do heal him, but now you open yourself up for pressure for the Musketeer, and if I get a kill on the Musketeer, I'm still winning, right? I definitely am. Of course, the Flagellant can drop a Redeem if he wants to, but he does have minus healing skills, so maybe there's a chance that he won't deal quite enough. And of course, you can see I can get crit 26s on command here. It's kind of insane, but so can my opponent, and the Musketeer is back up to full HP, so there goes all my pressure once again. I dropped the Death's Door here, which is really rough, but I just have to go for it, because if I don't, I keep eating Beast Piles, and at this point, I'm in a position where if I just keep eating Beast Vials and I keep healing myself with like 4 HP, I'm slowly gonna lose. Slowly, very slowly gonna lose. I can't let that happen. I have to potentially suffer that store here. I have to go to position 1, make sure that if my opponent wants to keep attacking me, it has to be through manacles. And as long as I survive one death blow, I will be able to have a win chance here. So if I had died there to that 25, it would have been GG. There's no way I could get a kill. But since I didn't die, I still have a bit of a chance. Very small amount of a chance, I'll add, but a bit of a chance. So here I'm gonna drop another heal. I do some nice damage to that flagellant, and he's dropping down to 0 HP again after what happens here. But here the Musketeer is going to go for a heal on him, so he's still perfectly fine. If I want to have my Jester action, I will have to go for a flare, so that's not too much fun. But I believe that I do still have options here. I'm not blighting out to 0, which is quite good, so I have that going for me, and I'm just going to end up going for the flare here. Of course, they might just stun me again, which would be quite bad, but then again, not the end of the world. One thing I could have done here, which I'm noticing now, and I probably noticed back then, but I decided it was better not going for that, is since the Abomination was forced to act, I could have gone Holy Lance into the Musketeer, or I could have gone Holy Lance into the Musketeer and then gone Flare and then dropped the Finale. I did have a chance of winning that way, but I probably wouldn't have enough damage. Probably. At the same time, I might have had enough damage, but I didn't really see that as a very good chance of winning, so I didn't go for it. I'm just going to keep dropping heals. I'm quite content with my opponent dropping manacles here, even though I'm not getting Finale buffs. Eventually, they will get exhausted here, so I feel like if we just keep doing this, we just keep repeating this, they're not doing any stress to me, they're just doing damage, and I can definitely deal with the damage between both my healing characters. So overall, it's a good situation for me. Of course, they will eventually be able to drop balance, but they're not going to drop them just yet. So they have to keep guarding here, of course, because they don't have just Finale or your flagellant, so you don't want that to happen. And I'm going to go for a sniper shot here. Finally, not a crit from this sniper shot. I really wanted another crit, but I did not get it this time. The Musketeer just heals herself, and you've already used up you've already used up the Musketeer heal quite prematurely, so that's good for me. Essentially, the Arbalist countered the Musketeer action, or the Musketeer countered the Arbalist action, depends on how you want to look at it. It's mostly the Musketeer countered the Arbalist action, because now the Musketeer actually has plus healing received on her, so, you know, that's rough, but it's not the end of the world. Flagellant is still dropping down to 0 here, and here comes another stun onto my Jester, so now I actually have stun resistance, so it could work, but it doesn't, sadly. And one of my buffs is actually going to go away. You see that my Battle Ballad buff is actually going to go away after I pass this round, so that is quite a rough thing, but, you know, such is the way of the Butcher Circus here. I am stunned. I do not get to go first, so that's not too good. And my opponent can drop me down to 0 HP here if they actually are crazy enough to go for the Exsanguinate, but, you know, they don't have to go for it. They can just drop her Reclaim at this point and just stay fine. They drop her Reclaim on the Musketeer just to make sure that she's alive and well. Of course, she doesn't have heal like the Abominations one, so she kind of wants to do other stuff. And here they're going to go for Exsanguinate on my Jester. They hit because they've been dropping command buffs, and my Jester, it wasn't a very good hit chance, let me tell you that much. But I have to definitely go for a heal here with the Battlefield Bandage, because if I don't go for a heal, then, you know, if I go for a heal with Rally to the Flames, just keep dropping down 0 HP, and once again, it's not gonna work out too well for me. I just have to heal with the Arbalist here, which lets go of some of my pressure, but, you know, such is the way. And here, there's going to be a Beast Vial. They're finally letting go of some pressure onto my Jester, because they probably noticed that if they just keep on repeating this, they might actually not survive here. They have to drop Beast Vial rather than just dropping Manacles. If they just keep dropping Manacles, once again, I mentioned this like in round 1, round 2, their only way towards victory is the Beast Vial. Just have to keep dropping it, and if they don't have it, you know, they're not going to have a fun time. If they don't keep dropping it, we're gonna let go of some pressure. So you see my Finale numbers, I'm looking at them like 1629. Yes, I know it's 1629. I'll have to look at it. I know how much it is. And I just drop a Dirk Stab here onto the Flagellant, because hitting the Man at Arms is pointless. Hitting the Abomination will get me repulsed, which I don't want, especially after he got a crit. And I guess I can just go for the Flagellant, just keep dropping Hues, and maybe I have a little bit of a chance here. Very, very small, but a little bit of a chance. Here, I don't want to disrupt my Flipper, so I just keep dropping heals. And the thing is, my version of the Goliath comp before I actually brought the double stun would actually be better for this matchup, because I had the stress heal and the Glorious Banner, so it would be much better for this matchup. But there's some other matchups where it would be much worse, because if you don't have Zealous and if you don't have the double stun, the Crusader just suffers immensely at the hands of the men-at-arms against some stress teams. So it really is matchup dependent. If you know you're going to run against the Immortal Team and you have to bring Goliath comp, definitely bring Glorious Banner, because if you have stress heals, you're going to have really fun time, because once again, that's the Immortal Team also doesn't have a lot of stress output, so it's quite good for you. So here they go for the stun on me because they fear the damage buffs that I've accumulated, but I just go for a flare and counter it completely. So that's all fine and good. And here they go for a heal onto the Flagellant. And now if you're smart, you can see I have a Holy Lance, and I can decide which character I want to go for. I can go for the Abomination or the Musketeer. I choose the Abomination purely because he has less max HP, so he only has 37 HP. My opponent doesn't have Redeem here. They go for an early Exsanguinate. Why did they go for the Exsanguinate? They go for that Exsanguinate just to make sure that I'm at this turn so I do less damage. But I do 18 to 33 damage, I roll for enough, thankfully. My Holy Lance was essentially a min-roll, but I roll for enough, I take that Abomination out, and with the Abomination taken out, they do no longer have a stress output tool, and that's gonna be GG for the 4th match against Tiger Finger Man. So the Goliath comp actually took a W here, a very unlikely W, pretty much perfectly played by by the person on the left, so good job, Shepherd Doggy. And yeah, very well played to my opponent as well. Even though you're playing this team and you don't do any sort of misplays, it's really quite difficult to win if your opponent just knows what they're doing and play quite well, because if you can get them in that position where they do no longer have the kill pressure, then you're definitely going to win. But if you can't do that, then it's just going to be a very close match every single freaking match. It's really quite difficult trying to play this team. Of course, if you play against newbies as well, your matches are just going to last forever because they don't know when the match is lost and you just keep playing. So that's quite annoying, playing the Immortal Team, and you know, it's whatever, I guess. I mean, Tiger Finger Man is the kind of person, like, he's a totally crazy person. I'm just gonna put the match, I'm just gonna have the match keep on going, I'll explain, but Tiger Finger Man is the kind of person where if you play against someone and they do not surrender after the match is essentially won, they're just gonna keep playing, they don't care, and instead of going aggressive, they're gonna keep playing defensively. They literally do not care about their own time, about their own well-being, they don't care about the other person's well-being. If you refuse to surrender, they will keep healing and stress healing until their characters are all at full HP, and until their characters are all at 0 stress. This is how dedicated this person is to the Immortal Team, and even though I didn't bring a direct counter, I was still able to beat them 4 times in a row, which was definitely quite good. We weren't playing like full-on competitively, full-on try-hard, we were playing this for practice. I definitely feel like I got a lot of practice here, so GG to my opponent, thank you for letting me have this practice moment. And yeah, you can see my Holy Lance, I was so excited to just go for that Holy Lance. I was really hoping for a lot of damage, so the finale would be a confirmed one, but it wasn't, and yeah. That's how it is. So the men-at-arms, you know, at this point you just have to notice that after that heal goes down, both redeems had been exhausted already, so there couldn't be redeem here. There isn't a direct heal from the Flagellant apart from the redeem. The men-at-arms has already used his guard, so he can't change guards. Even if he could, the Flagellant wouldn't have enough HP most likely. These characters already used their actions, so here going second actually helped me, because they had to use all their defensive actions before I used all my offensive actions. And at that point, it was just essentially over. I just corralled them into having their Flagellant action as the last one, because he was dazed as well. So dazed is very, very annoying, once again, kind of proving me that, you know, having a daze can lose you a match. And they had to use all their important actions and then just Holy Lance into finale, even though the Leopard's in that position. Of course, at this point, I couldn't go for a Dirk Stab, because if I went for a Dirk Stab, then, you know, he would just self-heal, and then the Leopard would be out of position, like, just terrible stuff if I had gone for a Dirk Stab there. If I went first, then sure, go Dirk Stab and then go finale at the start of the next round, but that wasn't the case. So anyway, hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you again another time. Cheers.